I was 3 years old when I fell in love with fire. The yellow and blue flames captured me. I dove in. Unfortunately, I wasn't badly burned, so I did it again. Later, I became an explorer. I've taken my canoe down many rivers. Each new trip adds to that first fire. This is the story of one river, one trip, on one man's journey. Dear Irene, I've finally reached the water survey cabin at the end of the river. I've been traveling 2 months, and it's been a hard trip, but not the way you would expect. The hard part has not been the physical dangers around me, although I had some close calls. But thinking about you and what you're going through, so much has happened over the summer. Let me tell you about it, starting with the fact that I have a beard. I left Yellowknife on June 23rd. It was spring in the Arctic. You love a loner, Irene, someone who has preferred nature to people. Why else would I travel alone, months at a time? I'm grateful that you let me go on the journey, that you knew it was something I had to do.
Wherever you want to go, anywhere down here, anywhere, yeah.
The day I left for the back river, I had mixed emotions. I missed you terribly, but looked forward to the journey ahead.
I think it's great, actually.
It's unbelievable. Yeah. Very shortly, there'll be very little noise except for what I make around here. Here he comes to head back to Yellowknife and say goodbye to me. The Back River runs for 500 miles through the Canadian Arctic, the largest wilderness left in North America. The river has 82 marked rapids and is full of large lakes, a wilderness easy to get lost in. This is the traditional home of the Inuit or Eskimo, but few people travel here now. For 2 short summer months, the sun barely sets. The rest of the year, land and water are frozen. Over 6 long solo journeys here, I've come to know the river and to love it. Packing up, unpacking. Packing up again, packing. Unpacking, packing. That's what camping out is. I love it. Now the biggest decision is where you want the front door. You want it facing the river or facing uphill? Well, in this case, you could have it both ways. You can have it facing uphill and towards the river. The first morning I saw caribou, a small group still in their winter coats, on their migration north. Maybe I started my journey too early. It felt great to be back in my canoe, loon, paddling, to be in nature and not dreaming about it, to be alone. But that first week surprised me. I found myself in ice. The river hadn't thawed. It is too early. Icework is dangerous. I didn't like the thought of falling through it or walking over it all summer. But other things happened too. Listen, I can hear them. Those are loons. That's my bird. Oh, God. That's why I'm here. That's a good, big reason. These are the loon eggs of an Arctic loon. I've had to go up to my knees in junk so that I could get out to take a look. Oh, but that's okay. I'm not going to bother you with that. Oh, wow. Oh, man. After the first week, I'd gotten through the ice and begun to free my mind of clutter, able to focus on the really important things. A year ago, in November, Irene discovered that she had breast cancer. And it was a pretty big lump. And since that time, we've gone through every treatment that you can think of. But what it did is it just changed our lives. And I was missing Irene today very much and hoping that she was okay. But I have been feeling guilty that I was here. And I know that one of the things that has helped both of us has been the ability to share it, talk about the possibility that it could be fatal, and the possibility that it might not be, and what would we want to do with the rest of our lives. But this period of my life seems like a very open-ended, in the sense that I really don't feel I know any answers. I don't feel I know any answers anymore.
Sunshine. Sammy, come. Yes, good boy. Good boy.
Irene, I kept thinking about that walk in the woods, and what you said then made me realize it's your courage that guides us and has from the start. Your journey is the real one.
The worst thing has been the deep, deep despair that I've never, ever known before. This abyss. Feeling lost at sea, you know? The funny thing is, it's the best thing, too. Because it reaches depths of myself that I didn't know about. And it means that if I can go that low, I can also go that high and that wide. You see, because I would never have gone there willingly. Never in a million years would I, if someone had given me the itinerary for that journey, said, "You want to go there?" No, thanks.
By the second week, just when I was feeling low, along came this couple, out of nowhere, totally surprising me.
That's great.
Hi, I'm Juanita.
Huh?
I'm Juanita.
Juanita?
Yes.
David? And David. I'm Robert.
Robert?
Robert. Oh, wow.
I couldn't believe the amount of stuff they'd gotten in that canoe.
How many pounds do you think you're carrying?
The limit.
Too many.
We have,
All the comforts at home in there?
Well, we plan to go for 65 days.
Oh.
okay, long time. So we got 300 or so pounds of food.
This is spaghetti sauce with onion.
Dried peppers.
It's dried peppers and onions and
Tomato.
sun-dried tomatoes and hamburger. There's hamburger in here.
Uh-huh.
Okay, and I'll have to hurry up and put the spaghetti back on because it's the spaghetti.
Here,
is
500 miles from nowhere, Juanita began preparing a gourmet feast.
doing its thing.
Yeah, I
Great.
think that was a particularly large batch of potatoes.
You know, this year for the
Spaghetti.
first time, I'll just make sure that it's boiling well. Put it on a simmer again in a second. This year I made stew. What I did, and it turned out really well.
It's really good.
What I did was I bought a bunch of meat and vegetables and stewed them up, put them in the oven, stewed them up. And when they got really, really, really soft, I mashed them up and made them like into a leather.
And
And then I laid it out and dried it. And then we
put it in an moisturizer afterwards.
put it in the blender.
And it's really superior.
Great.
Yeah.
And all you have to do is, and then I made dumplings to go on the side.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a different style than mine.
Excuse me.
I was curious about why they were here and about their expectations.
The auroras here are really spectacular.
I mean, the wolves?
The auroras, the aurora borealis later on.
Right.
Yeah.
I like the wolves. I'm here for the wildlife.
I think at some point you will think about is losing your boat. You know, you get that funny kind of feeling.
Oh, I had it today.
Yeah.
When I did a 360 in the rapid up above, I had for a moment thought, well, geez, if the rocks were a little closer together, I would probably have broadsided on
Right.
it and flipped.
Right. And then what are you going to do?
And then,
What are you going to do if you're sitting on shore, your boat's out there broached, right? Full of water cracking up, and you gear somewhere downstream, right? And you're sitting there. You're going to go out in 38, 40-degree water? You're going to get it? What would you do to get it?
Okay.
What happens
well,
if-
wonderful to see you guys. Yeah, I hope so. Bye, Juanita. Thanks
Well, thank you.
for
We'll
dinner
see
and
you.
everything. Yeah. Yeah.
We'll keep in touch.
Right.
And you have a wonderful trip.
You have a great trip and a safe journey. Yeah. Okay.
It was a great meal, but just as I was cheering up, David left me realizing how easy it would be to die out here.
Yeah.
It was fun meeting them, but I was glad to be on my own again, but sad to see all that food paddle off. Most people don't travel by themselves, but in groups, like ants. Alone, it's a simple life. Unlike David and Juanita, I carry only the minimum amount of food and a little rum. I have to fish and hunt for a third of my diet. But you have to catch them to eat them.
Oh. Hi, Irene. I got your letter yesterday. Rather, I opened up one of the envelopes you gave me, and it was wonderful to get from the I Ching, sort of a future thing. You said that you'd asked it a question of what was my trip going to be like, and it said that it points to light and clarity and to the daily renewal of character. Only through such daily self-renewal can a man continue at the height of his power. Well, that was really, really great to read. And it's wonderful to have a letter from you out in the Arctic. I like these little flowers, too. There are lots of flowers around us here. And it's all the little things that, like the flowers, that I love, that keep this place together. And it's also what keeps me together, because the only thing I can do to get ready for the unexpected that might happen anytime is to keep all the little things in order, like my shoes greased, or the paddles oiled, or the canoe fixed, and just, that's all I can do. This is my chaos box. As organized as I said I am, I always like to keep a space that has just everything humbled and jumbled into it. There's Tabasco sauce, which is up here, which helps liven up every meal. There's the little knife that I was given in Siberia by a reindeer herder. That's made from the antler of a reindeer, and all kinds of other stuff.
My fourth chemotherapy, which was absolutely horrible. I have to say it's been the worst ever. I threw up every other hour for 12 hours, from 1 in the morning to 1 that afternoon. And finally I called the clinic and told them, and I went back in to the hospital as an outpatient to get an intravenous dose of the anti-nausea drug. Now it's fresh out in the last year, called Zofran. So that made it much better, and I was okay after that. I'm just mildly nauseous, but it's really not so bad. During that horrible 12-hour period, I really questioned whether I was going to continue with it or not. Not only because of the bad and violent side effects, but because I really have questioned the value of chemotherapy and the philosophy behind it.
The river! Amazing! I'm seeing them crossing the river.
I'd traveled 150 miles when I surprised caribou in the river. An amazing sight. Caribou meant so much to the older Inuit or Eskimo. Their life was intimately bound up with the animals and the birds around them. Animals were not a renewable resource or an it. To them, caribou provided clothing, a toolbox, a sewing kit, and spiritual nourishment as well as food.
This is huge. It's a muskox. And it looks like he died a year or two ago, and this is what remains of him. He still has fur on some of him. And, wow. Look at that. Look at that. And there's still creatures. Look at that horn. But think about all the life that came out of a death, like of such a big creature as this. It's hard to believe he would have died a natural death, but suppose it was a wolf or a team of wolves that got him. They would have had a meal, Maybe a passing bear would have had a meal, foxes, seagulls. And the Inuit had a reverse idea from the one that the Christians have, because the Inuit believed that the body was immortal and the soul was something that came and went. And the body was immortal because just like this muskox, it went to feed them, it went to feed the animals around, and it grew the grass right up from underneath them after all the animals had their bite. And to them, that was immortality, passing on and on and on oneself.
Irene, if you hadn't seen a muskox, you wouldn't believe they could exist. They look like one of God's irrational thoughts. They seem out of a myth. Science and monotheism may have driven the gods from Olympus, but not the muskox from the Arctic. I was now a third the way through my journey and wondered what would happen next. When I was 19, I was locked up for a year on a maximum security ward of a mental hospital. I had gone through a psychotic episode or a schizophrenic moment or a breakdown, whatever label one would like to consider it. The consequence for acting up or not doing what you were told was you got put in something called PAX. It's illegal now, but it's a restraining technique where they wrap you in cold sheets, strap you to a table, and leave you there for 6 to 8 hours. It was in a shower room where they had it so that the echoes of my screams or anybody's footsteps would reverberate and make it twice as eerie. They told me that I was talking to angels. And in my confusion and talking to angels, I went to the wrong people and they locked me up. But it started a conversation that I haven't stopped yet. And I can walk around here, I can paddle through this landscape, talk to the angels all I like.
Here I live with the yin and the yang. I live with the light and the dark. I live with hope and with the prospect or the knowledge that I could die from this. I live with healing and with dying. I know that I could die from this. It's a fact. Everyone knows that you can die from cancer. It's just a fact that that's possible. But then there's the other hand here, which is that I may not die. Might not die at all from this. A lot of people don't die from cancer, and I'm not in stage 4, and I'm not considered incurable. I'm not considered a terminal case. So I live with these two things always, and I live therefore with the unknown. Of course, we all live with the unknown, but this is my biggest and most visible unknown. So I don't feel fearful now, although I have. And there have been times when I've been quite fearful. And in fact, the most difficult time was, I would say, about 6 weeks ago, something like that. And I went into my therapist's office and he said, "Irene, you don't look quite yourself today. You seem low. What's going on?" And I told him that I was very afraid of dying and I wasn't ready to die. I had a lot of things to do, and most upsetting of all when thinking about my death was the idea of leaving people I love. That I love so many people, and I know they love me, and I'm not ready to say goodbye.
I'd been out 40 days. The most dangerous part of the river lay ahead, the rapids. But before that, I looked forward to a rest at an abandoned cabin built by a Catholic missionary.
Father Billiard's cabin should still be up on the hill to the left. And it looks like I've caught up with David and Juanita.
My first thought was food. There they were, unpacking all that food. I wondered if they weren't like the angel that helped out Jimmy Stewart in that old Hollywood film, It's a Wonderful Life.
Running around after muskox all day, after paddling 20 miles.
You're tired.
How about you?
Oh, I feel great.
Yeah? Want to go for more?
Oh, I could. If you want punishment.
You say when.
Okay.
A lot
Okay.
of rice.
Oh, I can't believe I'm having fresh vegetables, mushrooms,
Yeah.
and rice.
Peppers.
And
Onion.
right, and you can have a little butter
A
on
little
your
butter.
real
Yeah, I'd like a
Yeah.
little butter too, please.
butter on your
Yeah.
rice.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna miss you guys. Take care. God bless. I found this little crucifix down by the water in the sand. Something left over from Father Billiard's day. The Oblate father who came here to minister to the Inuit, who didn't happen to be Christians. This was one of the last areas where there wasn't a ministry. He set one up. It lasted a few years, and then he disappeared, never seen again. Some people say he was murdered. Some people say he slipped through the ice. Boy, when the wind is blowing and it's rattling around a house like this, it's really eerie. But what's almost as eerie is that it's been 7 years since I've first been in this house. And on that trip, I was really worried about my dad because he'd gotten ill right before I left, and it wasn't clear whether he'd survive the summer. So I thought about him for those 72 days. And this year, I think a lot about Irene. But it's so cruel to see somebody who's 34 faced with a potentially life-threatening disease like breast cancer. And I don't know what to do about it. Last night I let the bear get inside my head. I had walked on the backside of the island and I'd seen bear tracks, and I couldn't really tell how old they were, but they hadn't been blown away by the wind. And so I went to sleep thinking every minute that the bear was going to come. It was like this, every rustle on the side of the wind and the tent was like the bear. And once it gets in there, it's hard to get that fear out. But part of what helped me was thinking of the kind of fear that Irene deals with. And the courage that she has to do that. I mean, that's not something out there that might or might not get you. It's something inside you. And it's awful. It's very hard to be a breath away from someone who's fighting
life-threatening illness and not be able to take it away, to get rid of it for him. Oh.
I had this feeling inside of me, and it also came in the form of a visual image in my mind's eye. And that is that there was a tiny, tiny little flower. It was so delicate and so fragile and so beautiful, and it was pushing its way through cement, through the impossible. My impulse, of course, was to pounce on it and to go, aha, there's a little flower, there's a ray of hope, there's some life. I wanted to pounce on it and grab it and hold it. And I knew, though, that of course would just kill it, and that I should just watch it, just the way I was watching the difficult emotions. I needed just to watch and honor this beautiful little fragile flower.
Very pretty. Very pretty, yeah. Now let's see your other profile. Yeah, that's right. You are the inveritable Sikh of the North. You are the Sikh of the North. I've seen so many feathers over the summer. So many of the geese feathers and the other birds, that I was thinking that if angels had to go somewhere that was private and quiet when they molted, that maybe they come here to molt. Wouldn't that be beautiful? All those angels you saw the monks painting in the illuminated manuscripts of the Middle Ages. I wonder where the progress is when we stop believing in things like angels and a multitude of gods. It's 1 a.m. There's a full moon that's over there. The sun has just set over there. It's going to move around and come up over here. And it's never going to get dark. I love paddling at night. It's like dreaming. After a couple of hours of paddling, you feel like you're in a dream. I think it's the rhythm and the quiet. The same way that the animals come out at night and come down to the shore, my thoughts come out. The quieter thoughts, the shyer thoughts, they come forward. Irene, during that long, silent night paddle, I remembered our visit to the church. How still and quiet it was inside. How thoughtful you looked. I remembered our long talks about faith and where we find it. You'd recently discovered a recurrence of the cancer. Killing birds and animals is murder. There's no other word for it. Taking life is never easy, but my killing is not for sport, but survival. All animals and birds, in their deepest sense, even in their organs, are just like us. That's how you do it. Okay. That's what everybody up here is doing, eating one another. And there goes the loon.
I think if more people had a connection with the food that they ate, they'd appreciate other forms of life, perhaps more than they do. When you take your chicken out of a plastic bag and you get your milk out of a carton, and you have no idea where it comes from, I think you think about nature differently. But if you have to take a life to eat, then you revere it. And I lost my knife. I can't believe it. Oh, I don't believe it. Foolish man. Foolish man. Oh, my knife from Siberia. I lost that little knife. Goose filet mignon. And soon to be goose soup.
Thank you, Mr. Goose. Thank you for my freedom, and thank you for your life. Good goose soup. Rainy, these last 10 days are the toughest part of the trip. This is a land of many rapids, a symphony of rapids. There are 82 marked on the map, and some not marked. They scare me.
All right. Okay, 1, 2, and 3 coming up. 1, 2, 3. Good lead. People ask you what kind of rapids there are up here, and they class rapids in canoeing terms 1 to 5. And I always think it's sort of a silly thing, because if you took over in a 1, that's a 5 to you. it feel good? Oh, to be over that. It's a long day, the 45th day of the trip. And if I wondered where the black flies were in the middle of July, I know where they are now. They're right here. Tired.
I hate black flies, especially in my ear. Now the trip was wearing me down, but sometimes when you feel the lowest, the sweetest things surface. That night I fell asleep remembering our Valentine's Day dinner, how beautiful you looked.
What would you like to What's that?
Green beans from Jack and Beanstalk.
You could sleep here. It's beautiful. Smells so good. I'm ready to go home, though.
Rainey, at times I've been scared I might lose you, like you have worried for me. Here I've been able to put in order what matters most. I see your strength mirrored in these rocks, this landscape. You've been my guardian angel all summer. I've even felt you in the wind. Touch me.
I used to hold a lot of fear, but I've noticed I hold lots of less fear now about my illness and about an unknown future, about my eventual death. One day I'll die, but I don't get scared by that idea anymore. And now that I'm very happy about. I used to really not understand death at all, and I used to think that physical death meant the end of life, that life on earth was life and that physical death was not life. And now I see them as all life, that it's not something and then nothing, it's not black and white, it's a continuum.
I mean, am I nuts, or does that sound like my name, Rob? I find that pretty eerie.
I'd spent 51 days outside and felt like I was beginning to act it. That last day on the river, I was excited to reach the water survey cabin, where my friend Jim, who had been coming down another river, was supposed to meet me with lots of food.
The little cabin on the hill. Oh, God, what a sight. What a sight. be Loon and my home for the next couple of days. Wow. What we got here? Oh, my. Look at this. It's a note for me. Wow. Here we are. Just a cabin. But it could be Rome, New York, Paris. Look at it. It's got a heater, an oven, Aunt Jemima pancake mix. Oh, and a mirror. Oh, that's what... Oh, my God. That's what I look like. I haven't seen myself for 51 days. Huh. Whoa. Let's see. Wow, 51 days ago I didn't have this. It's only about an hour after I got here. Now I have a real headache. So I've eaten a whole box of Triscuits. I've drank a few beers. Oh, I can't get over the fact that Jim beat me here. And then I can't cook him that dinner. And he took all the dinner with him. Oh, God. God bless him. Oh.
Rainey, when I set out, I thought getting to the cabin was the end of my journey. But I see now it's not. Your gift has been to melt my biggest fear about being close to another person, to you. I see the real journey begins now. In an uncertain world, there's no set itinerary, and not even a good map. But we have each other, and wherever we're going together, Rainey, together.
How'd you find me?
I saw you. Hi, Rainey.
Hi.
It's been a long time.
Look at your beard.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. I thought barbers were supposed to be talkative.
I thought customers were supposed to be talkative.
Oh, well. So what's happened for you lately? Had any interesting customers?
Oh, yes, we get some real doozies in here.
What's been the hardest part, though, for you in the last few months?
The hardest part is trying to understand, well, to understand why I got sick at such an early age. And I realize there may not be an answer to that, but you still ask. And the hardest part also is living with the unknown.
We were married that April. 2 months later, Rene's cancer returned. 2 months after that, she died. She accepted what was happening with grace. One of the last things she said to me was, "Don't worry, I'll be around. You can't fall out of the universe."
For more information and to order copies of this film, visit our website at gotrob.com.
I finally made it to the bottom of Beachy Lake. When the black flies were so thick at the rapids below Beachy Lake, I'm encouraged to keep right on moving. This is the longest portage of the summer, 2 miles. I had a 50-mile day yesterday, and I wonder how far I'll get tonight. Let's see. I don't know. Who goes next? I don't like black flies. I don't like them at all. I've tried. There we go. Things happened on my way back here. This little guy I found on the path, and he didn't make it. One of the little ones who makes the whole tundra come alive. It's a little tiny bird in such a big space. And the second thing that happened was I was coming back along by the river where the rapids are, and there was the sun behind them, and it was like columns of mist rising. And I looked closer, and they are not mist, they are columns of bugs. Not just any bug, black flies. I just want you to know that the wind died and that these are not extras. The wind died.
Now I'm getting out of here. That's why I'm here, bugs or no bugs. That is the rapid at the end of Beachy Lake. And boy, that's the end of the portage. And it's a beautiful piece of water. It really is. I mean, how do you ever really know something? By coming and spending 6 weeks in Kamchatka, do I know really anything about it? It went way beyond just the opportunity of being the first Americans to travel there. People at home will think I know something about Kamchatka, but I won't, really. But there are parts that I do know about. The idea started innocently enough. A canoe trip in Kamchatka. I really wanted to try and catch one of those Siberian blue trout.
Мы сейчас на реке второй день, и нам всем.
Today we're on second day on the river, and to all of us, it's very difficult. Today with Robert, we went on a scouting mission. We checked the river for a kilometer downstream. Today we'll have some big difficulties.
We're calling this the river from hell, but we do like it, right?
Okay.
You got mosquitoes all over your face.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
He didn't seem too upset about leaving the canoes behind and climbing into a helicopter. He said, "Okay, Rob, it's my turn to broaden your horizons. You've got to see the volcanoes. That's really Kamchatka." Vasily wasn't satisfied just to look. He asked a volcanologist to climb with us up Avacha, the second highest volcano in the neighborhood. I wondered if it would become the volcano from hell. Water is the element I feel closest to. I don't know why. Maybe because the river remains one thing that knows nothing about time. Meanders and oxbows still exist, but whoever knows a river? You can't hold it like a stick. The Connecticut is not the blue line on the map. It is a whole system of living water. 148 tributaries flow into it, draining an area of 11,000 square miles. Ben is a wildlife rehabilitator, now surrogate mother to these two cubs. He was asked to raise them because they had been abandoned by their mother. Last year was a bad one for nuts and berries, and the mother was too thin to raise the cubs herself.
Where you started from?
The Canadian border?
Damn! How many days you been out here doing this shit?
1 month.
A month?
Yeah.
Damn! I admire somebody like you, man.
One in the morning. There's a full moon that's over there. The sun has just set over there. It's gonna move around and come up over here. And it's never gonna get dark. I love paddling at night. It's like dreaming. After a couple hours of paddling, you feel like you're in a dream. But if you have to take a life to eat,
and you revere it. And I lost my knife. I can't believe it. Oh, I don't believe it. Foolish man. Foolish man. Oh, my knife from Siberia. I lost that little knife. So people ask you what kind of rapids there are up here, and they class rapids in canoeing terms 1 to 5. And I always think it's sort of a silly thing, because if you took over in a 1, that's a 5 to you.
I wanted to go because John Muir's been my childhood hero, a 19th century Scotsman who changed our view of nature. Sam said he'd come if he didn't have to navigate.
Now, do you know who John Muir was? Did you ever hear his name?
John
Muir?
Muir. I've heard the name. I used to work for Sue Hubbard. You ever heard of her?
No, you don't have to press the thing. It's doing it while we...
Oh, I see. Okay, okay.
You hold it, that's right.
All right.
Like that.
Okay.
And then I take a bite.
Okay. Ah, you got it upside down.
What, the hamburger?
Mm.
What do you mean upside down?
Well,
Oh, you mean it should be this way?
There, now. Now it makes you look like you know how to eat a hamburger.
I needed a partner, and we arranged to meet at the symbol of African adventure, Victoria Falls.
That's a good ticket. Hey, Bonus. Really good to meet you here. Sure, man, yeah.
Bonus Lunga is 27 and from a small village in Zimbabwe. We are both experienced rivermen. Bonus guides tourists dodging hippos and crocs on the flat water of the Zambezi. I travel the lonely, wild rivers of the Arctic. Ahead of us lies 1,000 miles and a 10-week journey.
Intafamba namani ikombela jimola ya kundla wa mapwenu kapele mentafamba namani kapele mentafamba namani ai gereja ntafamba namani.
This is the end of the Limpopo River. I love saying its name, Limpopo. Always have. Kipling's story brought me here, but it's Bonus and this river of people who've pulled me back.
Imakata li rhandza papa iwawe imakata ku